Social science perspectives, using science to understand human behavior. So we have 8 weeks to talk about the social sciences. And basically, the first 2 weeks, we're going to introduce the social sciences. And then in the next 2 weeks, we're going to explore human and societal behavior. And in weeks 5 and 6, we'll talk about the evolution of understanding. And finally, we'll close it out in weeks 7 and 8 with from social understanding to social change. To be clear, we have 8 weeks, so we have 8 modules, and each lesson builds on the previous lesson. You can see the topics listed here on the slide, and I went over them on the previous slide. So I'm looking forward to getting started. So whether you're in this class because you're genuinely interested in the subject or you're aiming to fulfill a general education requirement, the end result is a letter grade. To earn the letter grade that you desire, think of this class in terms of points. We have 1,000 points in the entire class, and each week you will complete assignments that will earn you points, and those points will accumulate, and at the end, those points will be converted into a letter grade. So in week 1, you have the opportunity to earn 120 points. That's 12% of your total grade. So you want to score as high as you can on each assignment so that you can get the maximum amount of points. You made it through week 1. I'm going to go over these assignments for week 1, and then on the next slide I'll go over the assignments for week 2. So in week 1, the first thing you did was you introduced yourself to the class, and you also asked questions from the point of view of a psychologist, a sociologist, and an anthropologist. And after you posed your questions, you then had to respond to 2 class members, and that's how you earned up to 40 points for 1-1. For 1-2 and 1-6, these were 2 quizzes that you completed, and each quiz was worth a total of 20 points, and you had 2 attempts for these quizzes. They were graded automatically by the computer. The first quiz, 1-2, was checking to see if you understand the difference between psychology, sociology, and anthropology. And the second quiz, 1-6, was checking to your understanding of the scientific method. So far, that's a total of 80 points. The other ways to earn points in week 1 was to complete activities 1-4 and 1-5. Now, these assignments will carry over to week 2. So listen up. 1-4, all you had to do was list the 4 advertisements that you were interested in analyzing. And you could have done this in a Word document, or you could have just typed it in. In 1-5, you had to complete the comparison template. Now, you were only required to complete 2 or review 2 of the advertisements, but you had to answer the questions based on just 2 of the advertisements in week 1. In week 2, you go over this same assignment, but now you'll ask questions about all 4 of your advertisements. Okay, so in week 2, you can earn 180 points. There's 3 assignments. The first one, 2-1, is a quiz. It's based on your understanding of objective versus subjective observations. You can earn up to 30 points for completing that assessment. 2-2 is based on short answers, and it's based on some ethical dilemmas, and you'll get up to 20 points for completing that. 2-4 is Project 1 comparison template, and you'll earn 130 points for completing that. So altogether, that's 180 points, which is 18% of your grade. Now, I've included a pie chart on this slide so that you can see the points by week. And as you can see, if you combine weeks 1 and 2, that's already 30% of your grade. But you still have weeks 3 through 8 for the other 70%. So work hard and get her done. In week 1, there's 3 main sections that you're going to be focusing on: making sense of human behavior, asking questions like a social scientist, and then the scientific method. Psychology. So what is psychology? Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. So psychologists are people who are interested in figuring out what makes you tick, what makes you do what you do. And psychology is a very broad discipline. So you could specialize in a lot of different areas. If you went into clinical psychology or counseling psychology, you mainly be dealing with mental health. But you could go into sports psychology and you'd be talking about motivation. You could study personality psychology, or you could go into social psychology. So psychology is very broad. I personally have a background in psychology. I earned both my bachelor's and master's in psychology. My area of emphasis was clinical and counseling for my master's degree. So I did work in mental health field for a while, but my passion is teaching, and I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a little kid. So I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in educational psychology. And this is one of the disciplines that you'll be finding a lot about over the next 7 weeks. So I've included a link here to APA, the American Psychological Association's webpage, and you can find out more about psychology on apa.org. Jose Calderon and Justin Kidd are sociologists. You can click on the links here on this slide so that you can find out a little bit more about sociology from the mouth of a sociologist. I've also included a link to the American Sociological Association's page, and you can browse that here. Anthropology is the study of humans, past and present. To understand the full sweep and complexity of cultures across all of human history, anthropology draws and builds upon knowledge from the social and biological sciences, as well as the humanities and physical sciences. Here's a link to the American Anthropological Association's webpage at the bottom. Okay, so here are some tips and the answers to some frequently asked questions. First, netiquette. When you're making an initial post or you're responding to peers, remember there's someone on the other side of the screen. Okay, so proofread your post, and also don't type as if you're texting. You know, be sure that your message is clear and that it's respectful. For substantive posts, when you're responding to peers or when you're making your initial post, you're not just sharing a bunch of opinions, okay? The idea is that we're creating a learning community, an environment where people can grow, where they can understand the social sciences a little bit better. So whenever possible, include information that you learn from reading, you know, the resources or watching educational videos, or you learn from another class. So you want your post to be easy to understand, respectful, and full of quality information. Next is the late policy. So Southern New Hampshire University has a standard policy, and it's very fair. If you can't make your initial post on time, you can, you know, respond in the next couple of days, and there's a small penalty. But if you can't submit your assignment by Sunday, because most assignments are due on Sunday, then you have an entire 7 more days to work on it and submit it by the following Sunday. There's a 10% penalty. So to be clear, if you can't get your assignment in, you have 7 days to get it in and still earn credit with only a 10% late penalty. But if you can't get your discussion post in on the first day, which is due on Thursday, then you have just a couple of days to still earn some credit. And after the couple of days, you're pretty much out of luck. And this policy is standardized across the university. So, you know, it's pretty fair. All right, in terms of learning and grading, as I mentioned before, I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I've been a professor since 2003. And even before that, I was a graduate student who guest lectured for professors. And then when I was in undergrad, I substitute taught in K through 12. So I've always enjoyed sharing information, and I view learning, teaching as a way to learn, as a way for me to be a lifelong learner. So I enjoy learning from students, and I enjoy sharing what I learn. But when it comes to grading, that's really your responsibility. It's my job to use the rubrics to make sure that I'm giving guidance and I'm assessing you properly, but it's your job to make sure you earn all the points that you possibly can so you can get the grade that you're aiming for. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at, the email address on the page, or you can post a question in the questions thread and I'll respond. I'm here for you, and that's pretty much it for this brief slideshow.